These are 20 rules every Clash Royale player needs, but nobody really talks about it. And trust me, once you understand these, you're gonna win way more games, tilt way less, and you'll stop making the classic mistakes that 99% of Clash Royale players make. Coming in at number 1, never go first unless you know exactly what you're doing. Let them make the first move unless your deck is fast-paced with cards like the Hog, Miner, or the Goblin Barrel where you need to maximize damage in single elixir time. If you drop a big unit like the Giant, Mega Knight, or the Golem, you're giving your opponent the chance to pressure immediately. On average, try to play your heavier win condition later in the game as you won't get punished as easily in single elixir time. I have seen so many players lose the game instantly as soon as they drop a tank at the back when they know their opponent has their win condition in cycle. So make sure to only play your tank at the back when you're up in elixir or when your opponent's win condition is out of cycle so you don't get punished. Rule number 2, if you don't know what to do, just cycle your cheapest card. Whenever the match gets quiet and no one's making the first move, don't panic and don't just start dropping random 4 to 5 elixir cards. Just cycle your cheapest card. I swear this one rule alone stops people from overcommitting in the first 10 seconds of the game. I've seen so many players throw down a Valkyrie, a Wizard, or even a Musketeer at the back because they didn't know what to do and they get instantly punished. A simple Skeletons or an Ice Golem or even an Ice Spirit at the back just keeps your deck moving without giving your opponent any opportunity to get a massive advantage. Cheap cycle cards keep your options open and heavy cards lock you into a lane you weren't ready to commit to, and more often than not you will get cooked by a good player if you waste it, for example an air counter and they have an air card like the balloon ready to go. This is clearly something that you can avoid most of the time by sticking to this rule. Rule number 3, don't defend everything at the bridge. One thing I see all the time, especially in mid ladder, is players defending way too early at the bridge. They drop a Knight, a Valkyrie, or even a Musketeer right on top of a push the second it crosses a river, thinking they'll be aggressive, but all they're really doing is giving their opponent free spell value. If you defend too high up, your units barely get to do work before they get fireballed, logged, or even splashed by support units. I can't tell you how many times I've watched people play down their Musketeer at the bridge just to have it evaporate in seconds, leaving them down an elixir and down a unit. Defending at the bridge only works in very specific situations, like when you're sniping a support troop or dealing with a lone hog or a ram rider, but against real pushes, defending too early gives your opponent control of the fight. Let the push come down to you. Defend closer to your tower where you have more time to react, more space to kite, and way better value because you got both your towers engaged as well. Rule number 4, spell value wins games, not fancy pushes. One thing I've learned after thousands of matches is that people underestimate the power of spell value more than anything in the game. If you can clip a troop and the tower with cards like the Fireball, Poison, or the Rocket, always take that trade. It's basically free and guaranteed value. I've seen players ignore perfect spell opportunities because they were saving it for later, and then they lose the game because that Musketeer they didn't fireball ends up deleting their entire push. Meanwhile, a good player is always fireballing or using their spells on anything that gives them value. Troops, towers, support units, which slowly builds a guaranteed win. Spells just aren't DPS, they're tempo, they're pressure, and that's how you chip down towers when the game gets tight. Never hesitate to take value when it's handed to you. If you take a look at pro players, they understand the value of spells and they take most of their games to triple elixir time if they have to. Spell cycle is a skill that most regular players don't understand, and it can completely change how you look at games once you truly understand how broken it can be. Before we move on to the next deck, make sure to like, hype the video, and join the Discord group, which is linked in the description of the video, where we talk about everything. Rule number 5, only activate King Tower when it actually matters. King Tower activations are powerful, but only when they actually matter. I see so many players forcing activations using the Tornado or pulling units like the Knight and Valkyrie to the King Tower, and it literally gains them nothing. You're spending 3 elixir to activate against a deck that doesn't even get close to your King Tower. You're basically just wasting elixir here. A King Tower activation is only truly valuable against cards like the Hog, Miner, or even the Goblin Barrel and other decks when it actually gets close to the King Tower. Those are the matchups where the extra tower helps defensively, but activating King Tower against a random Royal Giant or Expo deck makes absolutely no sense unless they give you a free activation which you cannot resist. So don't try to force King Tower activations just because they feel good. Only go for them when they actually change the matchup in your favor. Rule number 6, rough elixir counting is good enough. You don't have to be a pro to count elixir. You don't even need to track every single card like the competitive players, but what you have to do is have a general sense of when when your opponent is broke and when they're up in Elixir. Just a simple mental note like he just dropped a P.E.K.K.A, so he's at 3 Elixir, will give you enough information whether it's a good idea to pressure or not based on the other cards in his deck. I've seen so many players refuse to punish because they don't even realize how low their opponent actually is. If they spend 9 Elixir in one lane, you should already be pushing the other lane if that's what you want to do. You don't need exact numbers, just a rough feel is enough. If you really want to get good at this, make sure to stick to one deck for 100 games and learn the different matchups it goes up against. Once you have enough experience with that one deck, Elixir awareness wins games that even card skill don't. Even a basic sense of Elixir puts you way ahead of the average player. Rule number 7. Don't split your push unless your deck specifically needs it. A lot of players split their push like they're gonna get both towers at once, but in Clash Royale, splitting pressure with the wrong deck is basically throwing. Unless you're using Royal Hogs, 3 Musketeers, or a specific split lane pressure deck, or you know exactly your opponent's Elixir count, you're just creating 2 weak pushes instead of 1 strong attack. If your deck relies on one big coordinated push, Hog, Mega Knight, Giant, Golem, or even Lava, splitting your troops guarantees nothing connects. You hand your opponents easy trades and let them shut down both lanes with minimal Elixir. However, like in all things, there are exceptions. For example, if you see your opponent use all his air counters to defend your Lava Hound and you track that, you can go with the balloon opposite lane to get some insane amount of damage, which will put you ahead by a mile in the damage race. But the general rule is push one lane with purpose, force them to respond fully, and only split when your deck is meant for it or when punishing an overcommitment. Rule number 8. Buildings must be placed on time or early, never late. When it comes to buildings like the cannon, Tesla, bomb tower, or any other defensive building, timing is everything. If the Hog Rider, Giant, or Ram Rider is already on your tower when you drop your building, it's too late. Unless there's a situation where you have a card like the Ice Spirit to reset, but let's not talk about exceptions. When you time your defensive building, it can get you a lot of value, but late buildings just die instantly and leave you with no defense, and you lose your Elixir, which you could have used to pressure instead of defending a push that's gonna get damage anyways. I can't count how many times I've watched someone panic and drop the cannon on top of their tower when the Hog is already mid-attack. The worst part is the Hog doesn't even retarget, making it a lot worse. All that does is cost them Elixir and allow the opponent to get full value. Either place your buildings early enough that it actually pulls the unit, and make sure you time it well to ensure maximum value. Late placements loses games all the time, so avoid it at all costs. Rule number 9. Always punish when they waste their counter card. Every win condition in Clash Royale has a specific hard counter. For example, the Hog hates buildings, Graveyard hates Valkyrie, Balloon hates the Musketeer, and yet I see so many players hesitate to pressure even after their opponent uses their only counter at the wrong time. If they drop a Musketeer on the wrong lane, you should go in with your Balloon instantly. If they place a Bomb Tower against another card and you're using the Hog, that's your time to pressure. Against good players, just one solid connection is all you need. Too many players wait for the perfect moment when the perfect moment is actually right in front of them. Punishing immediately when you know your opponent's counter to your win condition is out of cycle is how you get free damage without even having to try. Rule number 10. You have a small reaction window, so don't hesitate. In Clash Royale, timing is everything, as you guys already know, and you have a very small reaction window to respond properly to what your opponent plays. If you hesitate too long, the opportunity to defend efficiently or turn their push into a counterattack disappears completely. I see players freeze the moment they see a big push. They panic, they overthink, and before they know it, the entire push is already on their tower and it's way too late to fix it. But once you understand your deck, your defensive placements, and your matchup's win condition, reacting quickly becomes second nature. Clash Royale is a game that rewards confidence, not panic. Quick decisive reactions can lead to clean defenses, while hesitation always leads to unnecessary damage and lost momentum, which is hard to get back. Rule number 11. Don't stack support troops unless you're playing a true beatdown deck. One of the biggest mid-ladder mistakes I see all the time is stacking every troop they own behind a single tank like they're assembling an army in Clash of Clans. Wizard, Mini P.E.K.K.A, minions, all of them are marching in a straight line behind a Giant or a Mega Knight. And every time I see this, I watch the entire setup evaporate to one fireball or one rocket and then a simple Valkyrie or a Knight. Stacking support only works in true beatdown decks like the Golem, Lava Hound, or E-Giant decks where your entire goal is to overwhelm with one giant Elixir push. But if you're playing Hog Cycle, Minor Control, or any fast deck, stacking your whole army is the fastest way to lose games. Spread your troops so you don't get wiped out by one singular spell. This forces your opponent to react multiple times and prevents them from gaining free Elixir value on both offense and defense. A general tip tip here, when in doubt, space your units at least 3 to 4 tiles apart to avoid giving spell value. Good players space their units, and mid-ladder players stack their units and get completely wrecked when they don't understand the matchup. Rule number 12, always defend with the cheapest effective option. One of the biggest differences between a high skill player and a mid-ladder player is that the good player defends with the cheapest card that still gets the job done. I've seen so many players waste 5 to 6 elixir defending something a 2 elixir card would have shut down perfectly. Someone will mini P.E.K.K.A. a Knight, Wizard a Goblin Barrel, Valkyrie a Lone Hog, when a cheaper and a smarter answer existed in their deck the entire time. Using more elixir than necessary on defense puts you behind immediately and gives your opponent the tempo of the match. You want to survive with minimal investment, so you always have the elixir to counter push or punish. This is how players build momentum, steal tempo, and maintain full control. A general tip here, before defending, ask yourself, what is the cheapest way I can stop this and still have the elixir to pressure afterwards? This small tip will help you win a lot more games. Rule number 13, learn one deck and stick to it instead of switching after every loss. One of the biggest reasons why mid-ladder players stay stuck is because they keep switching decks every single time they lose a match. They play Hog for 2 games, lose once, then switch to Balloon, lose again, switch to Giant, lose again, switch to Lockbait, and suddenly they've played 10 decks in one session and improved at none of them. Progress in Clash Royale comes from mastery, not variety. If you stick to one deck, even if it's a simple Hog cycle or minor control deck, you learn the placements, matchups, card timings, and how to punish mistakes. You start to understand what archetype your deck actually is, when to pressure, how to defend efficiently, and how to respond to hard counters. Every great player in this game has climbed by mastering just one deck first. When you switch up constantly, you never build game sense or the matchup knowledge. So a general tip right here, pick one deck that fits your playstyle. Be it fast cycle, control, beat down, and commit to it for 100 games. I say this all the time because that makes you master that one particular deck. You'll be shocked at how fast you progress when your deck becomes second nature. Rule number 14, don't under defend or you lose your game unless you have a beatdown deck. While some players defend way too much, others defend way too little. They'll tank a mini P.E.K.K.A. shot thinking it's just one hit and lose half their tower. I've seen people ignore an entire balloon thinking they can save elixir and suddenly their tower is gone. You need to understand what damage is acceptable and what is absolutely not. One musketeer shot, fine. One mini P.E.K.K.A. hit, that's an absolute disaster. The best players know instantly which cards to tank and which must be addressed. So a general tip right here, just know all the fatal cards that can do a lot of damage. Mini P.E.K.K.A, Balloon, Sparky, Prince, and of course the E-barbs as well, man. Never tank these, ever. Rule number 15, protect your ranged units like they're investments. Ranged units are secretly the strongest cards in the game because of how much long-term value they give. A musketeer that survives one push can shred the next one if your opponent tries to pressure. A princess at the bridge forces awkward responses and slow chips you into a win in certain logbait matchups. A protected magic archer can become a win condition by himself when timed correctly. But you see mid-ladder players let their ranged units walk into danger like they're disposable. They drop them at the bridge or place them where they get sniped instantly. Your ranged units multiply in value the longer they stay alive. Think of them as investments that appreciate over time if they stay alive. A general tip right here, always tank for your ranged units. Even a 3 elixir unit like the Knight can double their lifespan. A protected ranged unit wins games and an exposed one dies for pretty much no value. Rule number 16, always check card levels before committing to a big push. This is for all the underlevel players, but in mid-ladder, levels vary like crazy. You will face a level 16 Valkyrie and a level 11 Musketeer in the same match. Before committing to a heavy push, check their troop levels, and if their counters are higher than your win condition, they can delete your entire push before it even starts. I've seen players drop 10 elixir into a lane and just watch a level 16 Valkyrie or a bowler wipe out everything instantly. When you're out-leveled, brute force won't simply work. You need to outplay, not outpush, which is simply not possible. A general tip right here, if the opponent's counter card is over-leveled, avoid fighting directly. Go opposite lane or bait it out first and then go off the counter attack. Don't lose to stat differences. Learn to maneuver around them. Rule number 17, don't waste your small spell. It can be your lifesaver. A lot of players blow their log, zap, or bar barrel the moment they see any troop, even if it's something harmless. They'll log goblins or zap a bomber just because they want the troop gone, and every time they do that, they lose their next interaction because they don't have their small spell ready for real threats. Your small spell is often the only thing keeping you alive against cards like the Goblin Barrel, Graveyard, Skeleton Barrel, Wall Breakers, or any sort of swarm cards. If you waste it too early, you open the door for massive damage later. The best players protect their small spell like it's gold and only use it when it actually prevents damage, secures a trade, or helps them cycle if they know their opponent's deck already. Rule number 18. Never ignore chip damage versus fast or control decks. Most players only think about big pushes and huge swings, but Clash Royale's often won by little moments of damage adding up over the whole match. A minor hit, a fire spirit connection, a spear goblin poke, a princess shot, these seem very tiny, but at the end of the day, they add up to a significant damage over time. Ignoring chip damage is how people lose their games, even though they thought they were winning. Meanwhile, smart players are always collecting small hits that eventually turn into a spell cycle range, which is another strat they can go for if their deck allows it. Every small hit forces reactions, drains elixir, and builds long-term pressure. A general tip right here: if you're struggling to break through, focus on consistent chip damage rather than focusing on giant pushes. Rule number 19. Only upgrade cards you actually use, not random cards. One of the biggest reasons players get stuck on ladder is because they level up cards they actually never use. I see players with level 13 wizards, level 14 witches, and random level 16 barbarians, and then have a level 10 win condition. This is absolutely absurd, and this is why their deck feels weak, because they've wasted their resources on a card that don't even belong in the real deck. I made an entire video covering the best decks and the best cards to use, which will help you guys a ton. Anyways, if you want to progress faster, you must focus on upgrading just one deck, and just focus on certain cards that you need. Level your win conditions first, then your tank or main support card, and then your cheap cycle cards. Don't waste your golden cards you think might be good later, because that never really works. Every top player has a focused upgrade path. Mid-ladder players stay mid-ladder because they upgrade a random collection of cards without having any intention. Being selective makes your deck a lot stronger and will guarantee you to progress faster. A general tip right here: upgrade only the 8 cards in your main deck until they're all the same level. A focused deck at level 13 beats a scattered mess of random cards any day of the week. Finally, rule number 20. Don't keep pushing into the lane they're dominating. One of the most stubborn habits in this game is players forcing pushes into the losing lane. If your opponent already has damage there, or if their counters naturally defend the lane better, stop feeding that side. You're giving them free value and helping them snowball pressure. I've seen so many players trying to push into lanes they only have 500 damage, thinking it's the tower with more damage done. This will lose you the game, and if you play against a control deck, you're guaranteed to lose, as they want you to play the same lane as they can benefit from the counter attack. Switching lanes resets the matchup and forces your opponent to defend angles they weren't planning for. This is how you break defensive decks, avoid hard counters, and regain control of the game. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and if you want to know the best cards to be having in your deck to win more games, click on this video. Bye.